Spade bits, a California tradition. What comes to mind when you think of California? Is it the massive redwoods, the stretching beaches? What about the tourist attractions? All of those things are commonly seen as California. But did you know that it was the original Wild West? California started out from Spanish settlers coming from Mexico and Spain to civilize the New West. These Spanish settlers also brought rich traditions with them. Specifically speaking, cowboy traditions. These settlers taught the indigenous tribes how to ride the horses their way, teaching them how to train them and how to ranch. This created a new era known as the vaqueros, one of which was considered prestigious for embodying peak horsemanship and creating unique horses that moved and worked in impressive ways. However, as the West modernized, these traditions evolved and changed, creating the new reining scene and the bridle horse. It still carries the vaqueros' prestige with them, yet with modernization came the internet and misinformation, both of which sparked hatred and outrage for the bridle horse's most fundamental tool, the spade bit. Although spade bits have very complex and often harsh-looking designs, with long shanks and long ports, it has a deep history in California's vaqueros and bridle horse traditions. It was specifically designed for a horse's oral anatomy and made with their comfort in mind. It's an art to make one. Bridle horses are often trained in a special way to handle a spade bit. Not just any horse can ride and win. Despite that, the internet is very adamant on pushing misinformation about spade bits, some even pushing the idea of it being harmful for the horse. It's a common belief online that spade bits are abusive due to their intriguing designs. They're made with long shakes and large ports, and famously harsh for a horse's mouth, such as said in the Horseman's magazine, Bits for Your Broke Horse. If you use a swivel, shank bit, or any type of bit with a jointed mouthpiece, and the hinges on the sides of the mouthpiece where it connects to the shank so the joints on the mouthpiece are too loose, the corners of your horse's mouth can get caught and pinched. Shank bits are notorious for pinching and pulling at a horse's mouth. The joints are often too loose and create unnecessary pressure. There's a large misconception when it comes to shank bits as well. Many believe if you have a misbehaving horse, you should use something with shanks to create more pressure, when really shanks should be used as little as possible due to the excess pressure they create. The quote describes just what the worst outcome of shanks can do. Following that, the metal part of the shank that attaches the bit to the bridle is going to jab your horse's right cheek due to the combined action of the shanks and the broken mouthpiece. Similar to the pinching and pulling of shank bits, they also jab and push. Pressure is generally used by pushing in one direction to make them turn the other, and shank bits often do more than just push and will make a stabbing motion that makes the horse react in other ways. Despite this, spade bits are created with the purpose to not have any pressure be put in the shank, making the shanks a designer look rather than a functional one. Along with that, spade bits originate from a very lengthy history that impacts a lot of modern cowboy culture. Spade bits are rich in history. They originated from the California vaqueros during the late 18th century to create what's known as the bridle horse. The vaqueros brought with them a lot of unique spurs and bits, the ornate nature of them being the whole focus of vaquero culture from Spanish influences. In contrast, the style of bits and spurs that developed in the far west were drawn directly from the Spanish and Mexican settlers, and were not influenced by the English and French at all. The Texas and California development of spurs and bits were a bit similar. However, the separation was directly from the Spanish settlers versus Texas having English and French influences. California's new cowboy culture comes directly from Mexico, which brings a lot of Hispanic culture with it, which correlates to California's heavy Hispanic and Latino population that are still relevant today. Though the Spanish settlers were not alone, indigenous tribes had already been living in California, and those settlers utilized that. Breaking the Spanish law forbidding natives to ride horses, the California missionaries trained them to be vaqueros. The mission Indians of California took to this new task willingly, and with natural skill, in fact. They remained the primary caretakers of cattle, along with the Mexican vaqueros who trained them, for the next 100 years, making the California equestrian industry known for its deeply rooted Mexican and Hispanic heritages. Even though it is not as mainstream as the reining culture here in California, the Hispanic cultures all throughout the state played a fundamental role in shaping one of the original Wild West destinations. Spade bits were, and still are, a major part of those traditions. A big part of what makes spade bits still relevant in training over centuries is their anatomical design. Spade bits were designed with a horse's oral anatomy in mind, especially their comfort. Since spade bits are meant to be ornate, they were designed to sit perfectly in a horse's mouth and cause very little discomfort. Second, the port on a curb bit provides relief for the horse's tongue. Some curb bits have no porting while others have large ports. A right-brained horse typically needs less porting, whereas a left-brained horse typically prefers a large port. Spade bits are designed with large ports, which will sit on the tongue without pushing down and applying unnecessary pressure. Pressure is applied to the palate instead of the tongue, if ever at all. Spade bits are designed to not have pressure be used, hence their ornate nature. Even with that, their build is still important, many of that being the shank. The shank is located below the mouthpiece on the curb and shank bits. Shanks multiply the amount of rein pressure and come in short and long versions. Typically, the longer the shank, the more pressure that would be fed on the mouth. This is why bridle horses are rode with loose reins and little to no rein pressure. Long shanks create intense pressures from the bit and amplify the reins. So riding a horse with loose reins and no rein pressure prevents that. Instead, the horse is taught to move from vocal cues and the rein against their neck rather than the bit being used. Along with the spade bit's lengthy history, there's also a culture to create spade bits that comes from many lifelong family traditions. These are becoming a dying art as manufacturers are changing traditions. This begins way back during the original Spanish settlers. Development of the classic California bit and spur began in the 1850s, closely following the development of saddles, made by skilled professionals who learned their trade in Mexico and later came to California. Starting in Mexico, the making of the spade bit made its way to California with Spanish settlers. It was like an art, specifically handcrafted with ornate designs and silver embeddings. There are still many competitions today where artisans enter their handmade spade bits and compete to see who has the best crafted bit. As spoken in preserving the vernacular tradition, it must be beautifully to fully distinguish and pay tribute to the level of training achieved by its bearer, yet it must be functional to allow that bearer to realize and express his full potential as an athlete. As mentioned earlier, the spade bit has origins all the way back from the 1800s, and today those traditions still thrive. However, it isn't as simple as a YouTube search or a Google tutorial. The making of spade bit comes from passed down traditions. It is a taught art that creates a lot of pressure. The bit must reflect the training process, which means the bit has to be ornate, beautiful, and detailed to reflect how intricate and focused the training process is. The two come hand in hand, one emphasizing the other, and that's why making the bit isn't the only art form in vaquero traditions. Similar to making a spade bit, making a bridle horse is also an art, stemming from traditions beginning in the 16th century and traveling to California during the 18th. It prioritized subtle cues, having full control of the horse while barely asking it anything. It is seen as peak horsemanship and created the competitive sport, reining. They trained their horses first with a hackamore, consisting of 3 parts: a braided rawhide bosal of the nose, a theodore of rope or leather to hold the bosal on the horse's head, and a mecate, usually of horsehair's rope as reins. When the horse was thoroughly trained in a hackamore, the spade was gradually introduced. Bridle horses are trained in a specific way. They're started in a hack, then bits are introduced. The first bit to be introduced was traditionally a spade bit, but modernly is now a snaffle before they use a spade. This is believed to create a softer introduction to bits, so rather than the immediate complex nature of a spade, the horse can adjust to the metal and odd pressures of bits through a softer, gentler snaffle design. Outside of the bit itself, the cowboy plays a big role too. The spade bit requires delicate control with a light, sensitive hand, using the combined weight of the reins and rein chains correlated to the curb straps to correct the horse very subtly. There is little tension applied to the reins, which are held in one hand. Spade bits are not meant to use pressure to create control. They're meant to sit and look pretty. Using such subtle cues, it looks like there is no cue at all. The spade bit is also held in a way that it asks for a horse to bend its neck slightly and put its nose down, a comfortable and natural pose. It is also very visually appealing and creates a picture-perfect image of gracefulness to judges when competing. In all, spade bits are not horrific, twisted pieces of metal meant to torture a horse's mouth. It is an art, a tradition, a historical piece of California, and a beautiful reflection of horsemanship. The spade bit is a mirror of everything peak horsemanship embodies. It is an art form taking centuries to grow, spread, and modernize, taking years to create the bit alone, and even longer to make the horse ready to hold the bit. Despite what many internet users have to say about it, the spade bit is an important part of California's horse industry, and an even more crucial part of our history.